Well, good afternoon, everybody. How are you guys doing today? It is Impact Conference. We've been gearing up for this for a long time, and I have the pleasure, I should introduce myself first. My name is Robert, and I have the honor of being the host or question asker on the podcast of PJ Talks. It's a weekly podcast that Pastor James does, which is just from the overflow of his life. We get a lot of questions, a lot of comments and concerns of what he does, how he does it, his favorite Bible stuff. But today, I'm not asking the questions. You guys are asking the questions. So we're going to do it in a fun way. Pastor Bill, come on up. We have Pastor James Ranger. Pastor James would like it if everybody can come a little bit closer. See, you guys were in the back. I told you earlier. I did. Hey, PJ. Sorry. Did you get the denim jacket memo or what?
I did.
Like, look at us.
Yeah, I know. I look good.
You didn't get it? You know what's funny?
Bill didn't get it.
Pastor Bill did not get the memo. What's funny, though, is I helped pick this out, too.
You did?
Pastor Lydia FaceTimed me and was like, hey, is this the one like you? And I was like, yeah, PJ and I can match.
Hold on. So, what you have to understand about this guy is he flat out tells me things I don't want to hear. Like, you cannot wear that no more, Pastor. You got to wear something else. And he just flat out says it. In fact, I like a certain kind of jeans, you know, and he and the creative team has refused to. They live their day, but I like them. They look good. I look good in them. And he's telling me. So anyways.
This too shall pass indeed. Hey, let me get you guys your mics. This is yours. Pastor Bill, yours is right there. So we have an honor, and Pastor Ephraim is going to be joining us. We have such an honor because Pastor Bill, you are joining us for the first time ever on this podcast, and we're doing it live. Can we get a little bit of audience reaction really fast? This is super exciting. I'm so jazzed that we have an audience today. Yeah, my mother is in the very back.
Your mother?
She's a sinner. You guys need to come up. Hey, but Pastor Bill.
Hey, see that lady sitting beside her?
Yeah?
Yeah, we went to Israel and she brought 5 suitcases.
There's no way that I have 5 suitcases of clothes, period. Everything is black in my closet.
She can compete with you.
I probably do have more. But Pastor Bill, you are our district supervisor. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's what they call me.
That's what they call you.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your job really fast. What is it that you do? How do you oversee? Who is it that you oversee? And when do we fire him?
Well, let's start with the first one, and then it'll just be the two of us talking.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. We oversee about 165 churches from Fraser Park to the Oregon border in California, and then Nevada and Utah. And so within that region, we have 12 areas, we call them. And so I work a lot through those 12 area pastors, but I love to be involved in as many local churches as possible. So we're at when you pastor for, nearly 40 years, you're in your own church every Sunday. And so now we have this honor of being in a different church every Sunday and cheering on people who are doing a really good job, such as James and Lydia and the team. And we are just so honored to get to do that and cheer the leaders on. So
we appreciate you guys coming down. They were here for our CPD. Yeah, give it up for Pastor Bill. That is for sure. They actually gave us a huge blessing by allowing us to host the CPD conference, which means that all the 200 churches in his district came to New Life earlier this year. And what an epic conference. But Impact is where it's at today. And Pastor James, we know that you are the lead pastor of New Life Church. You're also the reason for PJ Talks, but you also are the reason for Impact Conference. Why don't you talk about really fast why this particular podcast today at Impact Conference is so exciting and important to you?
Okay, so first of all, I will answer that. But Bill and his team have been so kind to help promote this event. Bill, so thank you so much. The word got out, and heads up, our fall pastors conference is going to be up in Orangeville.
yes, Sacramento area.
And guess who's going to be the featured speaker? Ephraim Smith.
Yes.
Is going to be
Pastor Ephraim.
And Bill and I didn't know when we brought in Ephraim for our conference. We didn't know that he was going to be at Cheers.
Nope.
And so now we get a foretaste of what's going to happen then. So.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
So a long time ago, quite a long time ago now, I really felt as an issue of stewardship that New Life has been given a calling by God to raise up leaders. And through the years, the Lord has just graced us and blessed us to raise up and send out a lot of pastors. And it's a pleasure to do that. But what I realized, we had to become more intentional about one time a year, everybody comes together, all the leaders, we want to motivate, inspire, and equip and train and all that at New Life, for the New Life leaders. But then, so we started it. It just was like a very small thing. But then we realized, I started inviting some pastor friends. Hey, if you want to come hang out, we're going to be doing this thing. And all of a sudden, they said, hey, can I bring some of my people? Well, yeah, come on. And all of a sudden, it started growing. And David Mass there and Loretta up in Porterville, they've been coming from the beginning. And just based on friendship, relationship. And anyway, so then it just morphed into this thing that we've been doing now for a while. And we want to inspire leaders. And, especially emerging leaders, we want to inspire everybody. But if you're just getting started in the leadership game, man, this is the conference for you, because we really want to lift your spirits and help you dream a little bit. So
that's awesome. That is so awesome. If you guys are listening or watching on YouTube or on iTunes for the podcast and you are not a part of this conference, but you want to be a part of this conference, we will be trickling out the content from this, the different keynote speakers that we've had. So be on the lookout for the NLC.Life YouTube channel. You can check out all of our sermons or messages from this conference today there. So don't miss out on that. But let's get on with the questions, which is why we're here today. And this is kind of how it's going to work. There is a camera in the back of the room. I'm going to walk back there, and you guys will come up with your questions, and I will start it off. We'll ask the questions. These guys will answer all of the same questions, but with their own personalities and overflow from their heart and love and passion with Christ. And so we're going to start off with this question here from...
Real quick, you want them to go back to the camera to ask the question.
Yeah, you'll come back with me in the back. I'll be standing there, and y'all just come back up to me, and we'll look into the camera. You guys will watch her down here. This part will be edited out of the podcast. What? I did say y'all. Dang. Y'all. I almost said it again. You guys are rubbing off on me. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, y'all go back there. But it'll be great. The first question comes from Wendy Nolasco, who used to be this campus pastor, but is now a district supervisor in the Mid-Southwest District. She asked this question: what is it right now in this season that you are doing to heal or move forward in your personal life? Flip a coin.
I'll go first.
There you go.
Not enough is the answer, because we believe in being transparent. Yeah, I was going to say yoga, but it didn't seem like that would fit. I tried it once. The woman nearly killed me. I never went back.
I would love to have seen that.
No, there's no video. Believe me, I burned that. But anyway, honestly, something has been on my heart, this very subject, and I didn't know that was going to be asked. But it's part of the theme of our fall conference coming up, because I believe this is kind of no one's heard this. I just thought of it today listening to our speakers. But I don't know exactly how it's going to be phrased, but something about the pace of grace. Because I think what's happening is we're called to multiply leaders, disciples, churches, movements, all of that. But I think we can burn out so fast because we're trying to multiply so fast. And I think I've been guilty of that, and I know you have. And because you burned me out when I was working here. So
that's why you left.
Yeah, no, that's not why. But I really believe that God's saying, if you want to be a leader long term, if you want it to be a leader that lasts, and not just finishes well, but actually makes it to the finish line at all, you've got to learn the pace of grace. You've got to learn that Sabbath is not optional. And we're going to talk about that more at the fall conference, but I really believe that it's what the Lord's speaking to me personally, and I think that leaders that are driven, they can outrun their own grace, if you will. You don't want to be in that kind of a race where you're trying to stay ahead of the anointing, because God will only give you the supply to fulfill the call that He's called you to, not everything else that you add to that. And so that's what I'm learning and hoping to help others discover. But you.
So mine, Bill, deals more with, it's kind of a season that I've walked through, and I'm really on the other side of it now, but I'm kind of finishing it up, I hope. And that is that I walked through a season of loss, and I didn't realize it while I was walking through it. But, I mean, very practical things. Every time you lose something, you experience grief. We all know that, right? And everybody says, well, just grieve it and leave it. Well, that's true. But sometimes it takes time to grieve it. And so I went through a season where it's out of my health. It began with my health. I lost my voice. Ironically, today my voice is worse it's been in a long time. But anyways, but I lost my voice. I lost the capacity to lead the church like I once did, which what I didn't realize is God was trying to get me to let go of a lot of the controls. And so I walked through about a year and a half of suffering loss. And I went to a Christian counselor and here in town and sat down with him, and he said, why don't you he heard a little bit of my story. He said, why don't you, over the next week, just make a list of everything that you have been letting go of loss that you've experienced. And so, okay, I'll do that. So I went home, made this list, and man, I had to hide the razor blades. It was just like, oh my gosh. We moved from a house that we've owned for 28 years. You think, well, that's not a big deal. It really is. There's all your memories are there and all that. Just stuff happened. I could tell you relational stuff and just letting go. And then what I didn't realize is that as God was putting me through this season of letting go a lot, He was moving me into this new thing. But while you're going through the letting go part, you don't realize He's moving you into the new thing. See, for example, real quick, we were forced into doing tag teaming preaching. Most of the time for 25 years so, I gave most of the sermons, and I give all the sermons. Lydia did some speaking, Bill did some speaking, but predominantly I was up to bat a lot. I got sick. And when I did, I lost my voice, and we were forced into, if I gave a sermon, the only way I could give it, because we were doing 6 services, I had to tag team it with another pastor. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, this ain't gonna work. All of a sudden, the church loved it. They're like, oh man, that's awesome. And then I started releasing more and more other speakers. And by the way, when you let go, it doesn't always feel so good. Oh, because they don't need you as much as they used to. I'm letting go. And so I begin to, anyway, so the point is we're forced into this tag teaming, releasing more leaders and more speakers, and the church flourished. And out of that then was birthed, if I start naming you the names of the pastors and the speakers now, it's when I don't speak, it's not the end of the world. It's like, oh, when I do speak, that's nice. But boy, you know what? Like Erica right there, she's dropping the bomb every now and then at New Life. And Scott Garcia, he's just throwing down. Woo! So it's really fun. Anyways, enough of that. So another question.
Well, if you guys have a question, you can come back here to this camera. Hi, everybody. I'm back here. But if you guys do, just go ahead and walk up right now. Pastor Ephraim, welcome to the stage. Pastor Ephraim, here is the question for you while people come up for their questions. What are you doing in your life right now that is healing you or moving you forward?
Wow. Making sure that I'm taking time off. So trying to really have a good rhythm of Sabbath. So, some of my best days with Jesus are like at an Asian buffet or at Starbucks. That's becoming like my go-to sanctuary, just me and Jesus, So for me, it's just, how can I prioritize that or prioritize my life around the notion that the church I pastor can be no more healthier than the health of my soul and the health of my home. And so I want to be reminded that if I'm not tending to my soul, if I'm not allowing God to tend to my home, then it's really going to impact my ability to be a fruitful shepherd within the congregation.
That's good. That's very good. Applaud that one for sure. Pastor James?
Bill, go ahead.
Well, you weren't out here, Pastor. That was kind of my deal, and but you did it way better. I just want you to know. But I heard a pastor say one time that if you want to know the temperature of a church, you stick the thermometer in the pastor's mouth. And I do believe that they can't be healthier than the health of the leader. And so, well said, Pastor. Thank you.
Very much agree. We are here with Elliot. Come on over. From Lodi. Let's give it up for people in Lodi today, everyone. What is your question?
My question is, we've seen over the past several years an emergence of a newer phenomenon called church campuses, whereas historically we've seen a lot of church planting. Can you speak to the differences, the main differences between church planting, church campuses, the advantages and disadvantages of both, and why you feel that way?
That's a good question, and Ephraim's going to answer that.
Well, I think that, Bayside, where I'm at, has gone through 2 seasons of church planting. So the first season was planting churches that had the Bayside name, but they were standalone churches. And they would get together and fellowship, and but they were autonomous, standalone churches that carried the Bayside name. And the next iteration, or where we are now, is the multi-site. And what's good about that, and unique about that, is that we're one church, multiple campuses, which is different. So I guess it's the difference between being siblings or being cousins. So, you can be cousins, and that can be cool, and you connect with your cousins, but there's something else when you're siblings and you're sharing resources. And our model, being multi-site, is each of our campuses has a senior pastor or a co-senior pastor model. So connected to that, so at where I'm at Bayside Midtown, Bob or we preach twice. So I preach twice. I preach twice a month. He preaches twice a month. I'm there one weekend just to be there and hang out with people. I'm not preaching, not on the platform, hanging out. He does that one. And then another weekend, I am on another Bayside campus preaching. And that's happening with all. So if you come on staff at Bayside, we're saying you're going to preach on other campuses because we're family. We're one church, multiple campuses, and we're one team. And Ray Johnston's done a great job he's the founding pastor, and he's like our apostolic leader, but he preaches on other campuses. He no longer is a campus pastor on any campus. He's a global pastor that teaches and preaches on all the campuses throughout the year. And we meet once a week on Wednesday, and together, a group of 8 of us, we work on the sermons together. We plan out the sermon series together. And so I just mentioned that to say that, one model of church planting is to plant standalone churches that are connected to you, kind of the cousin model. And then there's the sibling model where you function as one family on multiple campuses, the same values, the same DNA, the same, spirit, pumping through your organic veins.
That's good. We have a quick follow-up from Elliot.
That is great, and I definitely appreciate the advantages of the campus model. Can you speak to any disadvantages there might be for some of us churches that are thinking about starting the campus model for ourselves? Things to watch out for, perhaps.
Well, I would say that, I don't see this as a disadvantage, but in the model that I'm in, if you really sense a strong call as a solo church planter, solo pastor, you're not going to like our model because it puts alignment over individual achievement. And so I don't necessarily see that as a disadvantage. Maybe in the other model, I think the disadvantage is that it is all on you as a solo pastor, as a solo church planter. And so for me, I feel like the model that I'm in now, it's adding years to my ministry life. To co-pastor a growing, thriving, urban, multi-ethnic church that is one of 7 campuses in a larger church, I think it's adding ministry years on all of our lives, giving ourselves to that team model.
Quick.
Hey, Robert, let me
Yes, sir.
let me follow up real quick.
Yes.
So, because we're doing the same thing, but we're just way behind you guys, so you and I would talk later. Because the truth is we did church planting the other way for a lot of years, and we weren't real good at it. In fact, we had, I think, 14 church plants, and I think 4 of them survived. Whereas now we have 6 different multi-site campuses, and 2 in Spanish, and all of them are thriving. They're thriving, and that's a great question, but I would think really hard on what would be the disadvantages. I can't literally think of a disadvantage other than if you're really called to be that apostolic leader where you're solo, and that's cool. I mean, if God's called you to that in New Life, as you know, that's the guy right there. He's an apostolic leader, and New Life is a great place for him to begin and spend 11, 12 years, him and Beth, and then, gosh, they went up to Eureka, tore it up, went up to Fresno, tore it up, and now he's a bishop. So there's place for that. But I will tell you this, I know if I got hit by the bus today, all 6 of our campuses would continue to thrive because it's not built on just James.
I just wanted to say that another option to consider. Don't rule this out because we did it when I was pastoring. James done it just recently as well. And that's what I call adoption. I found a congregation 6 hours away from us in Fresno, in Susanville, where that church was closing. It had died. It was down to like 12 people. And I knew about it because I was on the district council, and they had brought this as an agenda item to sell that property and close the church. And I'm like, you know how hard it is, because we had campuses, and we've experienced that as well. And it's really hard to get property changed over to nonprofit, so the city doesn't get tax money anymore on that property. So here I am looking at one that's already been approved, been there for 30 years, and it's going to be a feed store now or something. I just could not stand the thought of that. So we actually adopted that place, and we put our best couple on our team, sent them there. We supported them for the first year, and then at about half of that for the second year. And when you adopt, if you think about it, you take on full responsibility for this child or church that you're adopting, but they take on your name and your family identity. So this pastor had come from us, actually, but to adopt a congregation and to infuse it with the life, the vitality, the vision, the mission, the values that we already had. I mean, our pastor didn't have to start from scratch. He just carried this to another location. And so that's another thing to keep in mind, because we're planting churches about as fast as churches are closing. Wouldn't it be great if we could catch them before they close and bring life to that thing?
That's good.
And you would have a resource that maybe it'd take years to get in the future.
That is good.
Yeah, after just 2 years, that church is completely, it's part of Foursquare still, and but it is autonomous, and already planning its satellite campus as well. And so they're doing great, so yeah.
With developing the multi-site thing, I know that it's very quote-unquote trendy right now, so a question for all 3 of you while we're on this subject is, when is it appropriate? When is it right? When is it wrong? And what's the difference between just planting a campus because everybody else is doing it and planting a campus because it's needed?
I really think that church planting should be led by a missional passion. And so as we look at planting, new campuses, as we look at the adoption of existing churches, we think about it missionally. We think about places in the Sacramento region into the Bay Area where there's still large concentrations of unreached people groups. And so we know that on any given Sunday in the Bay Area of Northern California, only about 8% of the Bay Area as a larger metropolitan area are in church. And there are still significant places in the Sacramento region where there's such a large population of folks that are not in church. So I think that multi-site expansion, church planting should be driven by a missional passion that the harvest is still plentiful and the laborers are still few. There are still lost folks that need to be found, broken people that need to be blessed. And I think that should be the number one driver, the Great Commission and the harvest field that is in need of transformation.
That's good.
I can't improve on that.
Nor can I.
Perfect. Well, we have another question. Who am I here with?
Alyssa from the Southwest Campus for New Life.
Let's go, Southwest Campus. Anybody in here from Southwest Campus? That's what I'm talking about. What is your question?
Okay, so I lead a young adults women's Bible study, and in that Bible study, one of the things that we want to do is we want to not just have like studies and sessions. We want to really focus on the history of the Bible. We know that it isn't just a book with fun words, it's actually living history. So we've had a hard time finding like a template or a way to go through it. Like, is there certain orders or books we could go through? We've tried to look it up on websites, but we just don't know which one's the best. Do you have any options or any ideas that we could start using that will help us really study it in a proper way?
There are a lot of books on how to study the Bible. One of them is called How to Study the Bible. And I've actually read it, and it's pretty good because I think it is by Rick Warren, and it gives more than one method. And so you could probably read that one book and get 4 or 5 different approaches and pick the one that best fits you, if any of them do.
An organization, I hope I'm saying this right, I think it's the Institute for Bible Reading. They just started, they were a group of folks that came out of another organization called Biblica. And I think the best way you can look this up is if you Google the Immerse Bible. And so they're actually trying to create supplemental resources to make engaging the Bible easier and to understand it in those ways that you talked about, as a historical document, as the inspired Word of God, as authoritative and central. So the Immerse Bible, and then also Toomey, not to be confused with the luggage Toomey folks, but the Urban Ministry Institute has a website, Toomey.org, TUMI.org, and they also have some really rich Bible resources that they use for church planting, fueling church planting in under-resourced urban communities around the country and around the world. And they realize how important it is to raise up indigenous leaders that can help people engage the Bible. And I found those resources that the Urban Ministry Institute has is helpful too.
Those are awesome resources. Thank you, pastors. I am here also with another pastor, Louis. He is actually going to be speaking in our Impact Conference on the 6-on-7. Are you excited for that?
Definitely.
That didn't sound very excited. Come on, give a better. Are you excited for that?
I'm very excited. I'm a little nervous, but I'm very excited.
See, that's what I'm talking about. That's the energy level we like. Hey, so you are transitioning right now from the student life pastor into the executive pastor role. Really fast, 5 seconds. How is that transition for you, and what is one thing you've learned?
Wow, I'm almost out of time. You know what? That right there, I feel like I'm almost out of time. It's the weirdest thing. Transition is nuts, but you know what? Whenever you start getting uncomfortable in a certain area of your life, it's almost like God is trying to move you from point A to point B, and that's what it feels like right now. It feels like uncomfortable, but I think it's a good uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
That is awesome. So what is your question for our pastors?
Speaking of, I guess just ministry in general, longevity. You know, I read a while back, Bill Hybels has said, the way I was doing church was killing the church inside of me. And I've been doing ministry now since I was 18 years old. And I guess just looking at all of the leaders around me, I really want to make it that far. I really want to live in such a way to where my team and the people around me, and I'm instilling, I heard you guys talk about the Sabbath. Can you unpack, what does that look like practically in your life for longevity in ministry, to stick this thing out and to really live out that Sabbath?
That's good.
I'll tee this one up for you too. Because I'm older. How old are you?
I'm 48. So I'm probably the youngest, but this is the first panel I've been on in a long time where I've got more hair than anybody on the panel. It's been years. I mean, I'm usually always the short-haired person on a panel, so I appreciate y'all.
Hey, don't be making bald jokes.
Glad we can help.
Way though, I'm on my way.
You are. So, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this actually recently because of my stage in life and anyways, all this new stuff that's happening. But I think, Louis, to answer your question, I think it's vital that Lydia said it earlier about love your neighbor as you love yourself. Self-love in the proper way of making sure the air mask is on you appropriately. So that you can be a blessing to your family, you can be a blessing to the church. The longevity, I think, comes from being like Jesus in that he practiced saying no a lot. In order to say yes, he said no a lot. And he said yes to things that replenished him. I'm going to go be with the Father. And he went to nature a lot. And you guys know that, I'm a real believer in you got to get away from the city. You got to go to nature. You got to get out. You know what I'm saying? God put Adam and Eve in a garden, not in a concrete jungle called a city. So you got to pull away appropriately. The other thing is keeping you and Mama good. You and Mama good. You and the wife, at the end of the day, because we're kind of heading down that stretch down the road, she really likes me, and I still really like her. We're having more fun now than ever before because we did all the hard work for the last 38 years. And I mean, that doesn't sound, I'm just telling you, if her and I aren't good, it doesn't matter what this church is doing. Seriously, if we're not doing good, I'm not doing it, she doesn't, we're hating life. And ultimately that spills over into your congregation or your ministry or business.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't want to step on your claps like that. My bad. I'm not going to do that. My bad. I'm in your house. So I try to live under this notion of ministry ought to come out of the overflow of intimacy with God, identity in Christ, and really getting close to the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. And so definitely getting time off, like really looking at, hey, Monday's my day off. You know, if I'm preaching at a campus that has a Saturday night service, then I try to make sure that Monday and Friday are my days off, or Saturday, Monday are my days off. And dating my wife, so this is our first year as empty nesters. Both of our daughters are in college, and we just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. So I'm trying to get as many dates out this sister as I can. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get as many dates out of her as I can. And so the fact now that she travels with me, so that Danisha, I used to do this and I would be gone, by myself. And so even to have this season where, we're away from Bayside, Midtown this weekend, but we're together, and we came in early yesterday so we could get a date in last night, in Bakersfield before this today. So I just think the time off, the dating with your spouse if you're married, but just really allowing God to tend to you. You can limit your testimony just by not giving God the opportunity to tend to you well.
See, I didn't step on his clap. No, I didn't step on his clap, James. I'm just saying. So I already kind of addressed this earlier with a different question, but I also try. You have to schedule time off. If and it's not for us the same day every day. I'm here today. I'm in a different church on Visalia tomorrow. So yesterday, I went and got my motorcycle. I filled it up, had to change the battery, got it all ready so that Monday morning Beth and I can go for a ride in the foothills east of Fresno. That's what we both like to do, and we're in nature. We'll get to hear the hum of the Harley, and all of that really replenishes me and her. But if we didn't schedule that, Monday's a work day. We would just be in the office grinding it out. And so you really have to be intentional about the time away. It has to be intentional. Schedule places for spontaneity. I know that sounds ironic, but that's what we do. And so anyway.
I'm over here with Scotty, and we have another
Hey, wait,
question.
don't step on my applause.
My bad,
Go
Pastor
ahead.
Bill.
Thank you, everybody.
My bad, Pastor Bill. Hold on, everybody quiet really fast. Can we give it up for Pastor Bill for being here? There we go, no stepping on that one. Hey, I'm here with Scotty. What is your question, sir?
I got a question for Pastor James. I've been wanting to ask him this question. He's probably scared of what I'm going to ask him because he knows who I am. Are you really, 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 really scared of your wife?
How great is this question, Pastor James?
Scotty, thank you, buddy. Thank you. I was very scared what you were going to ask, and now, yes, the truth is, you bet I am. Hey, let me tell you. You know, it's in the bloodline, as we were talking about earlier. Because if you've ever met her mom, she's a lot like her mom, and they're lovey-dovey, southern, syrupy, sweet, all that. But oh my gosh, there's another side. And I just know if I did something really, really stupid while I'm sleeping at night, this is in their history. Not her mom, but another relative. They roll you up in, when you go to sleep, they roll you up in the sheet and tie it, and they take a baseball bat to you. So, what?
I just realized my wife must be from the South.
So yes,
I
Scott.
didn't know what that was.
Okay, but here is my real question, okay? I have been trying. I got family members that think that I'm, because of my condition, and I'm a busybody. I don't like to stop. I don't like to sit at home. I don't like to do anything. And I've been praying to my family, about my family, trying to get them to understand the Word of God. And it seems like I'm hitting rock walls, and I just, I believe what I believe, and I'm trying to speak my story, and I really don't know how to make myself understand that I can't change them.
So, a little bit of real quick history. Scotty was just baptized in water recently. Woo! And Scotty attends the Southwest campus, and Scotty, what I would say to you is just keep doing what you're already doing, because your life is the story, and people will hear your story, your testimony a whole lot quicker than they'll hear John 3:16, because you're living out John 3:16. So keep it up, Scotty. I'm proud of you. We got time for, we're going to be done here at 1 because we're going to take a 15-minute break to let everybody do what you got to do and then come back.
We do have a few more right now, just really quick. If y'all can come, we'll do a speed round. How about that? You want to do a speed round? We'll do a speed round.
All right.
First question.
This is directed for Pastor James. This morning you talked about to experience biblical unity, we need to accept our differences, but that doesn't necessarily mean approval. Can you just briefly talk about some differences between acceptance and approval of our differences?
Yes, good question. Well, for example, I use the illustration that my wife likes tattoos. She's a sinner, and your wife too? Do you have tattoos? You hate them? Me too. That's a perfect example. I knew I liked this guy. Let's not let our wives get together much. You may leave Bakersfield with her and another tattoo. But I can accept my wife's different preference. But I don't approve of that. I have two sons, adult sons, 34 and 35, almost 36, Jim and John. Shall I say that there's times when we do not agree on certain things? We have different preferences in music. Mine is much better. And there's times we just agree to disagree. So I will accept that without approving of it. And that sounds trite, but I'm telling you, it's huge in my life. And if you're going to get along with people different than you, and especially as a leader, well, it's huge. Because they can pick it up on your facial expressions and the way your body language is. You may not say anything, but you're saying things. So.
Okay, third to last question, and then we're almost done. You, sir.
Yes. My question for you, pastors, is I'm a young person, and I'm going to the master's program at LPC, and we're going through a mentoring course right now, and they're talking about the importance of being mentored. But as a young person, I find it hard to find someone to mentor myself. I know that a key for leadership is that it's not just being a leader, but being led. And it's not just by God, we also need the church. And so for me, I'm looking for a Paul, as I want to be a Timothy, and I want to lead the church that I'm called to. I need to find a Paul that is also pouring into my life. Is there anything that you could speak on that about, and how you found leadership in your own lives?
You know, I've had seasons where I've had a Paul where we've gotten together locally where I've lived, where I had breakfast with that person every other week, and it was a really, consistent, strong thing. And then I had other seasons where, for whatever reason, I just wasn't able to find somebody to mentor me that would give that much time. And so there are some seasons where you have to have a council of mentors. And so, like right now, I just recently moved to Sacramento 9 months ago. So I don't have somebody that I'm meeting with, or talking with every week or every other week. But I do have 4 people that I have scheduled monthly, either conference calls with or one-on-one time with. And that's just, so I think if you're okay with, there's seasons where I might have one person in my life that's like a spiritual father to me, that's like a spiritual big brother, and it's more regular face-to-face time. And then there's other seasons where you might need a council of 4 people, and through the 4 people, you get what you need in terms of people praying over you, speaking into your life, holding you accountable, that kind of stuff.
Well, I don't know your particular setting, and I wish I knew where you lived and which of our 4 square leaders could just grab you up, because it's really the opposite seems to be more prevalent, where people don't feel like they need any input. They might steal somebody's sermon, but they don't want to know what that person thinks about them. That's a completely different thing. And so I just want to commend you for having that heart. And don't be afraid to ask a leader that you admire if you could take them to lunch, and you buy, and they'll go. I know. I'm available tomorrow after church. So they'll be happy. They'll be happy because they'll see that same thing I see in you, that we see in you. And that's what they're really looking for. It's not that they have free time. It's that they want to invest in somebody that really wants to hear. And that's all the difference in the world right there. So you've got what it takes, so don't be afraid to ask. Real
quick, I know we need to wrap this up, but real quick. Part of what Bill's referring to is guys, let me just take my own life. So I did it just this week. If I find somebody that is like you, in fact, he's sitting here right now, but we talked this week. Well, he's asking that same thing that you're asking. Well, to carve out more space right now is a little difficult, but what I'm doing is, I just said to this guy, I said, just come with me. Just come with me. This is what I'm going to be doing. So I'm not going to add to my life. You just come and hang with me. And what I'm doing, you're going to do. And then in between, we can chit-chat. And it's more caught than taught anyways. So it's just the be with factor. Just even busy people, especially if they care about the next generation, they're going to take you with them.
One thing I can add from a young person who gets to hang out with Pastor James a lot, if you have a heart for being a servant, you get to hang around them a lot. I will get him water, food, hold his shirts, pick out his clothes, whatever. But I just want to learn and grow from that man. So one tip is just have a heart of a servant. But I'm here with Pastor Anthony from our Delano campus. What is your question?
Well, yes, Pastor Anthony for our newest campus in Delano. We're starting to stand up right now, you know. But my question is this, and I'm wondering if you can answer this. I'm not sure if any of you have been bivocational, which I am. I have a full-time job, which I love, and I love doing ministry also. So I was just wondering if you can talk a little bit about that. I feel I'm doing okay. I know I can do better in a lot of areas, but I was just wondering if you can address that for those of us that are bivocational.
I've been bivocational, trivocational, yes, 3-4 jobs. What I would say is one of the blessings about being bivocational that I didn't realize until much later is the opportunity to empower people in your congregation more. That some people that are bivocational, they take on too much and they're burnt out and they get a little ornery and they're not helpful to anybody because they remind people, you know, I have another job. What do y'all want from me? You know I work, you know, but to avoid that spirit, I think you have to say, look, you all know that it's important for me to be bivocational right now. It doesn't make sense for us to pull resources we don't have to support me. So this is what I'm doing. So I need you. I need you to understand your gifts, your talents, your call. And so let's all be bivocational together and be servants in this church.
If I could just add one thing to that, I agree completely with Ephraim. But when one of the times I was bivocational, and I was bivocational 16 of the years that I've been in ministry, not all of them in a row. It was different seasons and different places. But one of the places where I worked, there was about 50 employees in that manufacturing plant. And within just a matter of maybe 3 years, I had personally led about 10 of those people to Christ. And some who were kind of strayed away, if you will, from the Father, ended up renewing their commitments and coming to our church. So I see that bivocational is not just you working to support your ministry, but that your work is part of your ministry. And that is your mission field. I mean, one of the things that I find that churches that have plateaued and stifled is the pastors don't know any lost people personally. They're out of that circle anymore. They have truly come out from among them and been separate, not realizing that that has not the same meaning as go into all the world and preach the gospel to. And so I really see that it can be a blessing, certainly not a curse. And when your church is thriving to the point it demands all of your time, then you renegotiate. But I would hope and pray that church planters would see that being bivocational is a blessing because you're staying connected with the very people that you would love to see come to your church.
We got to wrap this up, but I want to say one thing about this. Something happened at New Life about, I'd say, 10 years ago. Let me back up. When we first came to New Life, and Bill and I were part of laying the foundation, and man, we were just about raising up leaders, and like everywhere we were finding leaders, raising them up, all that kind of stuff. But we didn't make a real clear distinction between the paid pastors and the non-paid pastors, or the Bible. We just blurred the lines. And then around 2000 or so, I listened to a guy and I highly respected him, and I listened to his advice, and it was wrong. Because he said you have to make a very clear delineation between the vocational pastors, and then the non-paid pastors. And we did that for maybe 5 or 6 years. And here's what happened. It's almost like in the Catholic Church where you have the hierarchy, and then, and if I could ever become a full-time paid pastor, then I'd be a real pastor. And that's just dumb. because some of the greatest pastors I know on earth are bivocational pastors. Your dad's one of them. Yeah, he's a plumber and a pastor his whole life, still is, 80 years old. But my point is this, is that when we remove that line, people around here don't know who's full-time, who's half-time, part-time, not paid at all. Most people don't know that around here. Those lines are blurred because it doesn't matter. It does not matter. So, I look at Pastor Bart over at Terrace Campus, and he works for State Farm. He took over almost a year ago. His first Sunday, they had 75. Last weekend, he wasn't even there. They had 170. That's good leadership right there. But he's, the church pays him a little bit there, but he makes his full-time living from State Farm, and he's going to plan on doing that for a few more years. But
Covered in the blood and insurance. It's awesome. You're covered, and you're covered. I would preach that every Sunday. You're covered. You're covered.
You're in good hands with Allstate, somebody.
Goodness. Thank you guys so much for being a part of a live PJ Talks. Can we give it up for our 3 pastors today? Hey, we just have our traditional closing verbals really fast. Before we get out of here, we want to say thank you so much for joining us today and watching or listening wherever you are. If you have a question for Pastor James, you can always shoot us an email at podcast@NLC.Life. Don't forget to subscribe or share with a friend. We will see you next week for another episode of PJ Talks.
Good job, Robert.